What's the most brutal way you've been rejected by someone? I was going through a real tough spot emotionally after my wife left me. And after a few weeks of pouting alone in my apartment, I got talked into going out to a dance club with some friends. One of my friends found this group of girls who were all pretty and we all danced together until we closed the place down. There was one girl that I liked in particular and she seemed to like me too. We danced a lot, even when the DJ played a slow dance song. After we all closed the place down, I asked if we could see each other again and she said, "Sure. I bowl every Wednesday night at the bowling alley." We had talked earlier and had a love of bowling in common, so this was great. I told her I'd meet her there at 7 p.m. and we went our separate ways. Wednesday night, I get to the bowling alley. She's on lane 17 with like 4 other girls and 2 guys. I walk over with my bowling ball bag and stand near her until she makes eye contact. And when she does, it conveys a look of, "Who the heck are you?" Me. "Hi, Emily." Her. "Hi?" Awkward silence. Me. "It's Michael. We met at the dance club last Saturday." Her. "Oh, how are you?" Me. "Good. Ready to bowl." Her. "Actually, we don't want any other people in our lane because we won't be able to get 2 full games in if we do. Why don't you get the lane next to us?" Me. Already starting to dread this. Okay. So I go up and pay the hourly rental fee for lane 18, get a pitcher, and head back. As I'm entering my name, a bowling alley employee came up and said, "Sir, we cannot have just one person on the lane. There's a 2-person minimum. The larger group just came in. I need you to bowl in another lane or ask the group waiting if you can join them." Me, looking at Emily. "Emily, would you like to bowl in this lane with me?" Apparently the other guy at the counter made a mistake. It's a 2-person minimum per lane. Emily. No, I came here to bowl with my friends. I don't think it'd be right to leave them. Sorry." Me. Okay, maybe another time. I got my things together and told the employee that the new group could apply my paid lane fee to their bill and offered them my unpoured pitcher of Mac and Jack's African Amber beer. It's delicious. I was completely emotional and broken again for a while, and it led to spending a lot of time looking out of my apartment bedroom window overlooking a Kmart parking lot. The night of bowling turned into a strikeout in the love department. Ouch. Story 2. High school dance. I decided to try to put together a little get-together with some friends and some friends of the girl I was taking to the dance. Had numerous people say they were going to come by and thought everything was solid. After dinner and the dance, she said she wasn't feeling well and I took her home. I went home to prepare for the guests because I figured this would still be an okay evening. Not a single person showed up. I found out later that the girl wanted to go do something else afterward with another guy and everyone just had something else, better, to do. It felt like I was rejected by the girl and numerous friends and it felt like a gut punch. I went to a dark place for a while after that and haven't really had any significant friendships since then. I'm currently happily married, have a great family, and maybe do some after-work stuff with coworkers, but I still don't have any significant friendships that I could call dependable. Still quite happy, though. Story 3. In middle school, there was this morbidly obese girl that liked me and was aggressive about it. I tried to be polite about my disinterest. It wasn't just her size, but her personality as well. She was crass and rude and talked about idiotic and disgusting things and just not someone I wanted to associate with. We had the same group of friends and she constantly wrote me notes and hung around my locker and tried to be everywhere I was, while pawing at me and putting her arms around me and telling everyone how much she wanted to be my girlfriend. The whole time I never lost it and just tried to be nice and keep distance between us, and let my disinterest be known. It sort of became a joke amongst my friends, with them always rubbing me about it. Flash forward and I moved to where I got to a different local high school than most of the kids in my middle school, and lost touch with many of them. And this girl drives by my new place one weekend and sees me hanging out front and stops and tells me that there's a party at her house. And most of my old friends are there and she was just driving to pick up a friend who ended up not being able to come. I think about it and decide I really wanted to see my old friends, including a couple of girls I did have crushes on. So I jump in her truck and go with her as I didn't have a car yet. When we got there, no one else was there. And she kept telling me they were coming as the party's supposed to start later and I'm just very early. It was mid-afternoon, so it was kind of believable. Her parents were gone, and she kept trying to give me more and more drinks while becoming more and more aggressive. She would sit next to me, and I would politely move, and she would then try to sit on me. Dear God. No matter where I moved, she was on top of me, and she was a little intoxicated, making her that much braver and inappropriate, to where I finally asked where the restroom was and went in and locked the door and climbed out the window and walked home. As I climbed out the window, she was knocking on the door, asking me to hurry because she had a surprise for me. To this day, I shudder to think what it was. I sprinted the first several blocks and then winded my way through odd streets, afraid she would show up in her truck. I felt bad about it, for bailing on someone so hard for just liking me, but realized it was more than that. I didn't see her for years after that. Until one night I was in a club and the waitress kept bringing me drinks from someone but would not say who, with the waitress making a note of the name of the drink when she dropped it off. The hint was very clear, albeit forward. I scoured the place, hoping to get a clue who was flirting with me to no avail. Finally, after no one revealed themselves, I figured it was just some shy girl being bold with her flirtations or a joke of some kind. So I got ready to leave, and she showed up looking and acting the same and said it was her. I have no idea where she was, that I didn't see her, but this was a 2-story club. They wanted me to go home with her, to which I made excuses and left. I have never seen or heard from her since. Story 4. Hopefully this doesn't get buried, but it's kind of a 2-tiered story. Years ago, when sitting at work, a buddy of mine, a guy I hadn't seen in years, came out of nowhere to say hi. I was thrilled to see him. He was only stopping by quickly, though, but could hang out with me in a couple of weeks. I wrote his name and number on a post-it note and stuck it in my wallet. Keep in mind, we share the same first name, and I wrote down his first name on said post-it. Okay, well, keeping that in mind, 2 days later, my roommate and I went to the local bar, pizza place we always go to for lunch. We have a nice waitress, and everything is going well. When we were done eating, I put down my debit card to pay. The waitress comes back and is furious. Like, insanely furious. Tells me she doesn't have to deal with this at work, that I'm a schmuck like every other guy. Just rips into me while I have a blank look on my face. Tells me that she told the manager I'm not allowed to come back. Me and the roommate are pretty miffed. Well, it turns out the post-it note with my buddy's number stuck to the back of my debit card, and she thought I was giving her my number. So this was a rejection, where I wasn't even trying to pick up the girl. So that's awful. And on top of that, geez, would I have been that much a monster for giving out a phone number? I don't do that at restaurants anyway, but yikes. I felt like a real tool for no reason. Still bugs me to this day. From friend's number to unwanted suitor, this is one awkward mix-up. Story 5. I've told this story in other threads, but perhaps this is the most appropriate of them all. When I asked a female friend of mine to be my date to an upcoming dance, she declines, and I don't see it as big of a deal. In the coming days, I found that she and her friends had spread gossip or rumors about me being a creep or stalker, to the point where women I had never even spoken a word to gave me a disgusted snarl if I so much as glanced at them. Of course, the salt in the wound is that literally every single one of my friends were able to snag dates, and I was literally the only guy among that group of friends to never get asked to the next dance. The dance where the tradition had the girl asking the guy to be her date. Needless to say, it shattered whatever confidence I may have had, and has me rolling my eyes at the worst you can do is say no. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't have said yes to me either back then. I was a desperate kid just wanting to be accepted and not be treated like I was some sort of monster. A simple no would have sufficed, however. Story 6. I had a good guy friend in college, and we had a Monday night psychology class together where we started to realize there was a mutual attraction. We'd been seeing a lot of each other that semester through job stuff, both RAs, but that class was definitely a catalyst, and we were spending more and more time together till it started to feel like we were casually seeing each other. Valentine's Day evening, he walks me to my dorm after class, asks if he can stop by for a minute so we can chat. I'm thinking it's Valentine's Day. He's been waiting for the right moment to have this talk, so I'm super excited. Of course, I invited him in. We take a seat next to each other on my futon, and he kind of smiles and starts with, "So you may have noticed it's Valentine's Day," and takes a breath like he's working up his nerve. My hopes could not be higher. Then he proceeds to explain to me that he's not really sure about us right now, and by the way, there are a couple of other girls that he's also been getting to know lately, so he just doesn't think he can commit to me right now, without seeing where those relationships go as well. That was the gist of it anyway. At that point, it all kind of became a blur because I was so shocked, given the lead up and the day that was pretty much the opposite message I'd been expecting. I mean, who sits someone down on Valentine's Day and explains why they will not be asking you to be their Valentine? Story 7. I posted this in another thread. It seems to fit here, sort of. I was introduced to her at a bar, by friends who thought I should meet her. She was gorgeous. We talked for about 10 minutes, seemed to have a decent rapport, and she indicated she needed to get back to her group of friends. I asked for her and was given her phone number. The next morning, I was going to go out on my 18-foot catamaran with my good buddy. I decided to call the stream girl to ask if she would like to join us. When she answered the phone, I said, "Hello, this is Libido." There was no response from her, just silence. I added, "Libido last name? From the bar last night?" She then said, "How the hell did you get my number?" I must confess I was a bit taken aback, but I continued. "Well," I said, "you gave it to me. Guess you had a bit too much to drink last night." I was trying to sound lighthearted to make her remark less awkward, at least for me. She said, "No." Despite what seemed to be her total dismissal of me as anything but someone she'd put wholly out of her mind, I plowed ahead. "Anyway," I said, The reason I called was to ask if you would like to go sailing with me and my friend this morning. She said, I have to go into the office today. I'll take a rain check. It was a Saturday. My friend had witnessed my side of the conversational debacle and enjoyed my failure immensely. I had a good track record with women, so seeing me cut down to size filled him with glee. His buddies often enjoy seeing one another make jokes of themselves. I interrupted his laughter to hold out the slip of paper with their number on it and asked him if he wanted it. He said no, so I threw the number in the trash. A week later, I decided to hold a party at my place. I had fairly recently broken up with a woman that I'd lived with for 2 years, and I was on my own. I mentioned this fact because, as a bachelor, I was ill-prepared to plan a party. I had, for the most of my adult life, been involved with women who had kindly and with great skill arranged social events for us. Nevertheless, I made my preparations. I purchased drinks, along with a large mass of cheddar cheese, and multiple blocks. I felt there was never enough cheddar cheese at parties, and I made certain I had a bounty of it. I neglected to buy much else, but I thought I had matters covered. I called a number of my friends, as well as some newer friends. Among those I called was a woman I had met recently at another party. I asked her if she and her husband could attend. She said they would, and she asked if she could bring a friend. I said, sure, and asked who she would be bringing. She named the "How the hell did you get my number" girl, who had so thoroughly rejected me. I said I had met her and looked forward to seeing her again. I figured even if she wasn't attracted to me, we could still be friends. On the evening of the party, as I prepared for folks to arrive, I realized I had a ridiculous surfeit of cheddar cheese. To encourage assumption, I sculpted houses and other objects out of the cheese. After my guests arrived and saw my cheddar cheese extravaganza, it became a joke, and I peddled the cheese throughout the evening. The girl showed up and we ended up talking together most of the night. It was made easy because she had made it so clear to me that she wasn't attracted to me. But as the evening wore on, I learned that, yes, she had been drinking the night before my call and she had not remembered giving me her number. She was shocked I had called because she was not giving out her number. She just ended her marriage and was not giving people her number. She went into her office on Saturday because she had an interest in a fellow there who was working that day. Despite her interest in her coworker, we continued to talk until all my other guests departed. We enjoyed each other's company. She agreed she would go out on my catamaran with me the following morning. The next day, we had a great time together in my boat. She was fearless, in the harness out on the wire. On Monday, I sent her a half-dozen roses. I figured her coworker should be put on notice I was in the game. On Wednesday, I carved roses out of cheddar cheese and attached real rose stems to them. I placed them in the box with a card I made that read on the outside, "A rose is a rose is a rose. Gertrude Steen." And when opened, it read, "Is cheese. Libido last name." I had my office's runner hand-deliver it. He watched her open it and she laughed. A year and change later, we married. On our invitations was a caricature of the two of us on our first phone call with one another, with me introducing myself and her asking me, "How the hell did you get my number?" The card opened to a drawing of the wedding bells, and beneath them was the phrase, "Persistence pays off." I've been married for 27 years. Story 8. Not me, but my friend who rejected me. Story time. A few years ago, my friend had a blind date set up through someone he knew. He was struggling with dating and figured a blind date would be something kind of interesting and exciting. We were going to go eat at some local restaurant or bar, have a couple drinks, talk, the typical first day BS. Me and a couple buds were messing with him days leading up to the date about the possibility that the girl might just be completely hideous, and how terrible it would be to sit around for a couple hours and struggle to get through the complete date. Anyways, me and the buds came up with a genius plan to have her friend wait outside the restaurant and wait for the mystery woman to arrive so that he could verify if the girl was up to his standards. I know, it's kind of silly to even set up a blind date if you weren't prepared for the worst circumstances. So my dude was camped out in his car across the street and the woman finally arrived. Of course, it was wintertime, so the girl was bundled up and her friend couldn't get a good look at her. Her plan failed, so he did what any man would do in this situation. He fled the scene. Apparently, the girl waited at the restaurant for over an hour before regretfully grabbing her things, bundling back up in her winter clothes and heading home. How devastating to be stood up in the harmful conditions of winter. But the real loser in the story? Yeah, my friend, who missed out on a date with possibly the most gorgeous woman I've ever seen. The winner of the story? Yeah, that's me. Just so happened to be at the same restaurant that night. I had no idea where or when their date was, and saw how amazingly beautiful she was, and I dated her for quite some time. And my friend had no idea it was her who stood up to until we broke up. Story 9. When I was in high school, I hung out with this extremely manipulative group of friends, the kind where you have to jump through hoops just so they'll hang out with you. We were always friends growing up, but in high school they made damn sure I knew I could be cut in an instant. Not a real healthy environment. But I was 16 and wanted my friends to like me. Sad, right? Anyway, they all loved this band that was coming to my city, and as a last-ditch effort to get on their good side, I bought them all tickets. With my small savings from my froyo job, I surprised them. The night of the concert comes and I ask them how we should all get there, who will drive, etc., etc. They said their older friend, who I didn't know, was even coming to the concert. Bought a last-minute ticket and there was no more room for me in their car. I was obviously upset, and they said to essentially just get over it. After all, they couldn't just let this new girl go by herself. Pause for hypocrisy. It was an absolute slap in the face, and I ended up begging my boyfriend at the time to buy a ticket and come with me. Anyway, it might not have been a rejection in the traditional sense, but I was heartbroken that they didn't want to be with me. Drove myself crazy trying to figure out why, then finally realized schmucks will be schmucks. I'm 22 now, and I'm so thankful for the friends I have met in college. Much, much better than high school. When you thought you couldn't get more surprised, they pulled the ultimate betrayal. Story 10. Recently, I disconnected myself from a guy whom I was seeing for a month. We enjoyed each other's company, went kayaking, fishing, and spent a weekend at the beach exploring together. We had quite a bit in common. Music taste, gaming, cats, etc. However, he hardly showed me any affection at all, and yet he expected me to be locked in a relationship with him. I showed him all the affection I could have given during this 1-month period. I rubbed his back when he asked me, cuddled him, showed him random acts of affection, paid for his food equally when we went out to eat, and more often than not, I was doing most of the work in the bedroom. He told me he wanted to talk seriously about us. Never once brought up the subject when there were multiple opportunities. So I mustered up the courage to express how I felt. I told him, I would like us to continue to get to know each other a little more and that I really see potential in us, as well as I would enjoy some affection from you here and there. In saying that, I realized that affection is really something I shouldn't be asking for. He should have given it willingly, without thinking about it, if he really truly desired me. All this I said, in which he casually laughed at. I brushed it off, but felt this needed to be addressed seriously the next time we spoke. I contacted him, asking when he was going to come over so we could come to an understanding on what we wanted. I suppose he came up with the excuse that he was breaking out in hives in his hands and arms. At first, I understood, but I then saw him on Xbox Live playing games. I guess he forgot he added me. I was upset and mad at myself for putting up with a runaround, so I messaged him, enraged, and told him, I can't do this anymore. All he said was, fair enough. I admit I expected him to put up a fight, or at least ask why, but it seemed like it didn't matter to him and we had no contact for weeks. I never asked for material things, just something that was priceless. I do feel rejected in a sense, although I was the one who ended it. Makes me feel as if I wasn't worth his affection or attention. This affected me a lot more than I thought it would. Eventually, I stupidly apologized for abruptly dismissing him like I did. Nothing had to become of this. I just didn't want any ill intention between us. I half expected him to accept, but all he replied with was, I have some of your things. When can I return them? It's amazing how unimportant someone can make you feel. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 11. I signed up to host a couch surfing website, where people from out of town can stay for free on your couch while traveling. A gorgeous woman and her non-straight man friend make arrangements to stay at my condo for the weekend. We cooked for each other and I had a nice time showing them around town and just generally hit it off. The woman was very flirty and touchy-feely with me from the get-go, but I played it cool and did not reciprocate. I'm not a man used to such forward behavior. Nighttime comes and despite establishing a good rapport with these people, I was a little nervous having two complete strangers in my house while I slept. So I locked my bedroom door just to be safe. Next morning while having breakfast, she asks, why did you lock your door? Don't you trust me? Wink, wink. I replied, what makes you think I locked my door? She knew she couldn't answer that question without validating my decision, so she dropped it. The weekend concludes and we exchange phone numbers in case another couch surfing opportunity arises. Time passes. Maybe 3 months go by and I receive a message saying she'll be in town and wants to get together for lunch. I agree and suggest a sushi restaurant I like. We meet there and from the moment we sit down, she's all over me. This has never happened to me before, but she's hot as hell, so I go along with it. By the time our food arrives, we're fully making out in public. Yeah, it's gross, but screw it. This sort of thing doesn't happen to me. I feel like I've just won the lottery. The affection continued throughout the meal, and by this point, I was very aware of the other patrons and waitstaff alike glancing uncomfortably in our direction, and I just wanted to get the hell out of there. So I found the courage to invite her back to my place, paid the tab, and walked her back to her car. And what I thought was a slam dunk became a rejection. She suddenly had somewhere she needed to be, but she would message me afterwards. I neither saw nor heard from this woman again. I was seduced and then rejected, and I'll never know why. Story 12. Story time, ladies and gentlemen. I hope this counts as I was actually dating her. I'll keep it as short as possible. It was summer, and after 2 months of being locked in the longest makeout stage ever, we finally got down to business. It was a Wednesday. Well, Thursday I called and she didn't answer. I tried again later that day. This was before cell phones. Yes, I'm old. So on Friday, I just drive by her place. I knock and she lets me in. There's some other guy there that I've never seen before in my life. Awkward, but only made worse because she wouldn't introduce us. Instead, she asks to go to the convenience store for drinks. She phoned up her best friend that lived 2 houses down, and we started the 3-block trek there. The entire time we were walking there, she walks 10 feet ahead of me with this other guy. I'm walking beside her best friend who just looked so embarrassed and uncomfortable. On the way back, the same thing happened. Her BFF took the opportunity to bolt and go to her home. My girlfriend and this other guy practically sprint to her house, and when I walk up, I realize he locked the door. I knocked a couple times before dejectedly walking away. It was my first real relationship, and that thing stung hard. Worst rejection I've ever felt. I never talked to her again, and she never tried to reach out either. Years later, I learned she moved to South Dakota and popped out a couple of kids, but I don't know any more than that. Story 13. Girl I was really into at the end of my second year of college. She had a boyfriend, so I didn't really think much of it. We're at the same party one night, and one of her friends who knew that I liked her comes up to me and says, "Hey, girl you have a crush on just broke up with her boyfriend. You should make a move." We ended up pretty intoxicatedly making out in my dorm room, but I didn't take it any farther than that. I kind of talked to her saying I didn't want this to be a one-time thing, and she was kind of like, okay. She then proceeded to pseudo-ignore me, and after trying to talk to her, kind of got the line of, "I like you, but I just broke up and don't want to start another relationship right now." I got that and kind of got it in my mind that after the summer break we would come back and she'd be like past it. I'm ready for whatever. Fast forward to our welcome week when everyone is having big parties before school starts. I see her there and try to talk to her, but she's just pretty clearly actively ignoring me. This makes me upset for obvious reasons, and I end up finding her roommate and pretty bluntly just asking her, "Hey, is my crush interested in me?" To which she very quickly replies, "God, no." Pretty heartbreaking to not only get shut down by someone other than the person you're crushing on, but also felt very let on or taken advantage of. She knew that I was into her, but still made me into her one-night rebound BS anyway. Story 14. I really like this girl. And her entire family too, pretty much. For 2 years. Just ending, I guess, a few weeks ago. Her mom was a teacher at my school, which is private and really small as the entire high school is around 50 people. I had talked to her in the mornings before school started for a while, and I started to enjoy it with her. I adored her 2 little sisters, who were as clever as they could be, and her mom was a spectacular person. Her aunt was also one of my favorite teachers at the school. I asked her mom if it was okay with her dad and the girl if I could take her out to our small homecoming dinner. It was in mid-January, and this was around late November. She said it was okay, and even though the girl was a little unsure about the idea of going full-on relationship, we still talked and got somewhat close. Around Christmas of that year, she started acting weird. I was upset often and wouldn't reply to my messages. A few days after Christmas and the New Year, my grandfather passed away and I was away from school for 2 days with a funeral and everything. Night before I come back, she tells me she has something to tell. Turns out her dad had been cheating on her mom for a year and a half with someone half his age and announced to his family 3 or 4 days before Christmas. I guess because he either couldn't manage the guilt I know he hides and or he wanted to spend Christmas with her. Anyway, to get to the rejection part, it really didn't end up being one moment, but a compilation of moments that kept getting worse. As things went on, it became pretty clear Mr. Midlife Crisis had no interest in recognizing the wonderful woman he married, and to a lesser extent, his children. He wasn't going to be interested in reconciling. I did everything in my power to ease this for all of them where I could. She was embarrassed that I had feelings for her because the school is referenced as 3/5 female and gossip is rampant, and the only acceptable guys are the stars of the basketball team. With everything I've seen with other people, it's not even if they like you or not. They won't like you because they're too afraid to be judged by everyone else. So anyway, she keeps reminding me we're not in a relationship in odd situations and ignores me if anyone else is near us. But I was trying to be understanding because of the pain I knew she was in. Sometimes, though, she would change her mind for a few days and want a relationship. Then change her mind because she was scared of being looked down upon, and to my horror, that I would do the same thing to her that her dad was doing to her mom. That hurt a lot, for many reasons. I could never say no to her, though, because she would ask me to listen to what her dad had done up to that date, and I knew that made her feel better and helped ease the pain I knew she was tearing her heart and family apart. Really long story, a little shorter. They couldn't afford to stay in the house the 3 girls had grown up in and had to move 3 hours away to where her mom worked part-time every few weeks. I realized she was using me as a wailing wall more than anything. The last straw was when she started accidentally texting me after we had a big argument, talking about some other guy and what you should say to him. It was obvious she was just doing it for drama. Because she was back home visiting other friends who also brought out a bad side in her. We used Skype, and I knew she wouldn't accidentally send something meant for another friend via that when Skype requires setting up a few different things when they could just use FB Messenger. Story 15. My first semester of college, I finally got the courage to talk to a girl. This girl is a heartstopper. Easily an 8 out of 10, and I'm over here probably a 4 out of 10 on a good day. I said screw it and approached her after the English 2 class we had together and asked her if she needed help with a new assignment, which she did. We walked across the entire campus, talking the entire way without a bit of awkwardness. It was like magic. I asked her what she was doing after class, and she said nothing. Then I asked if she wanted to go for a walk, which she said yes to. I live in a small town, and it's easy to get pretty much anywhere here in a few minutes of walking. We started at the college and made it across town, found an abandoned trail by the wood line, said screw it, and followed it. We found some railroad tracks and followed them because they ended up heading through town a few miles down. We walk, still chatting up a storm the whole way. By now I'm head over heels. Because, well, holy hell, this girl is amazing. We eventually made it back to the college after a few hours, and this being the South, we went swimming because it's hot. Once more, just her and I, and we swim until about midnight and both have class the next morning at 9. She lives about 30 minutes away, but my place is only a few minutes walk from the school, so I ask her if she wants to crash with me. She agrees, even sleeps in the bed with me. She's throwing signs like a Liberty tax worker. Fast forward a few weeks. We hang out every week, spend a lot of time together, usually drink a little on the weekends. College kid stuff. Anyways, she has told me once or twice by this time that she doesn't want a relationship. I say okay, but I'm going nowhere. I'm going to feel the same and I'm going to keep trying, and if there's never a chance, she needs to drop me like a prom night dumpster baby. She doesn't. Her parents loved me. I've stayed the night at hers a few times. We go out regularly and do relationship things, but she actually tried not to flirt. However, every once in a while she would, an accident, it would seem. Her parents talked about how she would talk about me when I wasn't around. Plenty of things to make a man fall in love. When we would drink, it was always together and alone. Once she had a drink with her, she would tell me thank you for being there. She would tell me that she never wanted to lose me, but despite that, she still didn't want a relationship with anyone. People were throwing themselves at her. People far more attractive than I. She didn't even give them the time of day. All of her attention was on me. Yes, I know this sounds like the typical shoulder to cry on best friend scenario. I assure you it wasn't. One day I was at hers and she was lying on the floor playing with her dog. Her shirt was riding up, so I saw her lower back. I noticed something I hadn't seen before. Scars. I immediately asked her what they were from, and she jumped up and pulled her shirt down. She refused to talk about it. I let it go. Fast forward a couple of months. It is nearly Christmas. By now she has won my heart, if you couldn't tell. But it's bothering me as well. We aren't official, and I need more than what we have. It's Christmas Eve, and she has to work. She works for an Asian family that doesn't celebrate Christmas, and she offered to work. I decided to surprise her with a present, so I drove to where she works and waited outside by her car. She comes out and sees me. We jump in her car, and I tell her that I need an answer. I need to know that she feels the same. She said she does, but she can't be in a relationship. I found it odd that she said she can't instead of doesn't want to. But I give the present to her, kiss her, and tell her to think about it for the rest of the break. I will text her over the next few days. We had already set up our classes together, all of them. Next semester we see each other on the first day. She waits for me after class and seems as if nothing is bothering her. I ask her if she has thought about what I said, to which she replies that she doesn't know yet. That day I told her that I can't spend any more time with her unless it is truly with her. We do not speak again until May. I texted her one night with the usual cliche. She tells me that she misses me as well and that she thought I hated her. I say no, quite the opposite. I love her. After that night I didn't hear back from her again. A couple of months later I decided to drop out of school. Horrible idea, but I'm back now. I digress. I'm lonely and irrationally decide to look her up on Facebook. I see a picture of her with a guy. They're kissing. She looked happy, but something seemed off and she doesn't live at home anymore. That breaks me inside, and to this day, 3 years later, I'm still broken. Her father was a major in the military and her mother was confined to a wheelchair with MS. I have my suspicions that her father took advantage of her because her mother wasn't able to do anything for him. What furthers my suspicions is that the guy in the pictures was also in the military. In fact, it was the same branch as her father. A few weeks ago, I learned that she now lives in the town I'm moving to next month and attends the school that I'm transferring to. I'm married now. I need to get my stuff together. After nearly a year of dating and nearly having a relationship, she dates another guy similar to her father. Story 16. The first guy I ever had a crush on. I asked him out after a few weeks of knowing him. He said no. Actually, he said, "No way in hell. Get off." It later came out that he thought that I was far too fat for him to date and that anyone that did was disgusting. And then it kept escalating. For the next 2 years, he kept ramping up his pestering, getting nastier and nastier with it. He lost friends because of this, people turned their backs on him, but he just kept going with it. It would have been bad enough to hear, "Oh, get off." But he did his best to completely destroy every ounce of self-confidence I had ever had. Then in high school, I eventually got over this and got away from him. I built myself up. I never quite escaped from that experience, but I hit a point where I felt pretty good about myself. I developed another crush on a guy, and I asked him out to homecoming. However, I had learned my lesson with the first guy, and I slipped this guy a note and made sure I was way the hell out of there before he could read it. If he was going to reject me, he wasn't going to do it in the moment, to my face, the way that first guy did. What he did was almost worse. He found a mutual friend, who happened to be one of my best friends, and told her to tell me no way in hell. From what I heard, she chewed him the way hell out for that, but passed the news along. I felt bad when I found out she got mad at him, and I was making cupcakes for some teachers who'd given me a recommendation and was giving extras to my friends, so I slipped one in there for him. I grabbed him before lunch and tried to give it to him, and he told me that I was embarrassing him and to never talk to him again. He started to cry and turned tail and ran, but before I left, the guy who had overheard told him that he was a complete schmuck for that one. So rejections were harsh enough that people nearby felt the need to call the guys out. Story 17. When I was perhaps 11, I was a really insecure kid. I had a close friend, we'll call him Sam, who had been by my side for the last 2 years. I was pretty awkward and she was extremely outgoing, so it was no surprise that she made a bunch of new friends really easily. Desperate to stay by her side, I tried to come out of my shell and ended up adopting a pretty awful false personality, as these girls were really popular. To ensure I remained in their group and by my original friend's side. In hindsight, I should have just ditched them, as pretending to play witch to be cool and accepted really screwed with my conscience. Anyway, fast forward to a few days after Valentine's that year. I'd been sick. I arrived at school to the coy faces of my friends exclaiming that I had recorded a Valentine's Day card and it awaited on my desk. I dated some of the cooler group-approved guys over the months, but was currently on my lonesome in the relationship department. Excited and perhaps a little bit smug, I made a beeline for my desk and discovered a handcrafted card, crudely drawn and covered in glitter. I don't remember what it said exactly, but I remember thinking it was beautiful. I got the stomach flips at the thought of someone actually liking me for me rather than for the people I hung out with. Anyhow, my friends began cackling and explaining that it was made by a boy we'll call James. I proceeded to ridicule and mock him. Looking at my friend Sam, who was also giggling, I made a poor decision of playing along. The class had filled up by then, and James, he was cute, with cropped blonde hair and shy eyes, had settled into his seat. I don't remember everything perfectly, but I remember the girls whispering in my ear, then moments later, I was shredding the card into pieces and tossing it into the bin like it was some contaminated napkin. The girls all laughed and cheered like I was some protagonist. James never spoke to me. I didn't deserve his time anyhow, and a few weeks later I retracted from the group, ditched Sam and made myself comfortable in the role of an actual kid, not worrying about status and rather playing on the monkey bars. I never got up the courage to apologize to James, but the unforgivable thing I did has always stuck with me. I doubt he will ever see this, but if he happens to and manages to realize that this passage is for him, I just want to say how sorry I am. There was nothing remotely wrong with you, and you were lovely. Your card was beautiful, and I wish I had kept it. This is all on me, and I didn't deserve someone as thoughtful as you anyhow. I hope all is going well in your life, and now you realize that some stupid little girl throwing away your Valentine's Day card wasn't worth the trouble to begin with. Sincerely, sad stupid little girl. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.